Okay, all right. Yeah, looks like we can record it. Thanks, Susan. So yeah, like I said, I'm Carl Johnson with the engineering department. I've got Kellen and Bob on the call with me as well. Here to talk about the North Grand reconstruction. Let's try to hold questions till the end. Hopefully the presentation will answer any questions you have. So why do we rebuild streets? The city commission directs our engineering department to fund one reconstruction per year with the annual street reconstruction fund. The way we prioritize these streets is off of a condition assessment report that was done in 2021 across the city, and they were prioritized based on condition. So you can see a map here. This one was updated just this year. You can see a few of the upcoming projects there. So you can see, we did a study of the street with survey equipment. It's actually kind of a cool little van that takes an assessment of the road as it drives along. But you guys live there, so you know the condition pretty well. There's some, missing curbs. You can see, I don't think it had rained that day. Inadequate drainage, altogether missing curbs, poor asphalt condition, pedestrian ramps not meeting ADA requirements, things like that. And outdated underground utilities. So here's an example of what a new local street looks like. You can see the new pavement, new curbs, pedestrian ramps in this bottom picture here with striping and curb paint. A lot of these projects include traffic calming measures and replacement of the underground utilities. The things that this leads to is the increased curb appeal, property value, accessibility, slower speeds, and comfort for pedestrians and cyclists. So, like I said, we try to do one of these projects every year. You can see our kind of recent success rate of this program through the last few years. A few streets that if the column says yes, and then that's the year that it was constructed. If it says no, that street wasn't reconstructed, which you can see North Grand Avenue has made it on this list in the past. I think Kellen said that was about 8 years ago. So
you can add Bogart Place to that list too.
Yes, good point. Yeah, so just approved Bogart Place as well. So why reconstruct North Grand Avenue now? It's no longer possible due to the condition of the street to maintain it using standard techniques like chip sealing, overlaying. The street needs to be rebuilt from the bottom up. We really like this guy fishing in the pothole. He makes it in every presentation. And then this top picture is a storm inlet on, I don't remember the intersection, but that's on Grand there. So you can see it's not quite doing its job. So the plan for the project, it's kind of hard to see, but Grand Avenue is kind of in a green outline. So the plan would be to reconstruct Grand from West Peach to West Mendenhall. The kind of rough timeline for that would be the informal vote, which is what we're doing right now, is we're gauging your interest in the project. If we receive positive feedback from that, we will survey the street, do the design and the assessment, and bid it likely. I put early 2025. Early are bidding projects like this in the kind of shortly after the holidays. And then so it'd be constructed in the summer of 2025. So I mentioned a vote on the last slide. So what are we voting on? The Commission Resolution 4507 establishes policy for funding street reconstruction projects. These funds are split into two categories. a local share, and a public share. The local share is generated by an SID. An SID, or sorry, a special improvement district, SID for short, is a method of financing certain public improvements, which is authorized by the Montana Code annotated. It's an assessment levied on the properties that would be benefited by the improvement. Only municipalities may create SIDs, and they allow cost to be financed for 20 years. Citizens within the proposed district have the right to protest its creation. If more than 50% protest, the district cannot be created. So, like I said, the SID is split into 2 chunks. So this is how we determine what the local share of that cost is. So the share of the local versus the general fund for the reconstruction is based on traffic data. So we performed traffic survey of Grand Avenue and came up with an average of 483 trips per day, and that kind of varies. It's generally lighter on the north end and a little busier on the south end. But so that would make it fall into the local category, which requires a local share of 75% and a general construction fund of 25%. That policy was revised with Commission Resolution 5174, which put a maximum dollar amount per linear foot that a property could be assessed. So that was a set dollar amount that gets adjusted for inflation. We currently estimate that amount to be about $175 a foot. The fraction of the total SID cost based on the maximum dollar amount per foot equates to about 40% of the total estimated construction costs. So what that means is that maximum dollar amount is less cost for you guys than the 75% split would be. So we know that we can use that maximum dollar per foot in place of the percentage split. So here's kind of some breakdowns of what the SID costs of the project are going to be. The total street frontage, that would include both sides, is a little over 3,000 feet. At $175 a foot is a little over $500,000. Like I said, that's about 40% of the total cost. So for a typical lot, most of the properties on Grand Avenue have 50 feet of frontage. That would be total assessment of a little over $8,000. The annual assessment for that would be $697 and a monthly payment of $58. And so the next steps, like I said, right now is we're interested in your opinions in having an SID assessed on your properties. And so, like I said, this is not the formal vote. This isn't to actually do the assessment. We want to know whether you'd be interested in having Grand Avenue reconstructed. And so following this meeting, I will prepare these postcards. You'll get these in the mail as soon as I can get them out, and I'll give you guys a few weeks to get them back to me with your opinions. So I think that's it. So yeah, I'll open it up to questions, and yeah, I guess those of you on Teams, if you could try and use your raise your hand feature, that would be great, so that we're not all talking over the top of each other. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One, how does it impact old pipes? Like you're going in there and you're going to stuff up. I have really old pipes. Can I change my pipes at the same time? Is it going to destroy my pipes? I've been told they're not in good shape to begin with. They're expensive to change them out.
Yeah, good question. So we will replace the water mains in the street. We'll replace the stormwater infrastructure and likely have to add some as well. And then the sewer main was rehabbed a dozen-ish years ago.
Yeah, it's an old 10-inch main, but it was lined. So the sewer main's in good shape. We'll replace the service from the main to the curb.
Okay, but how does that impact like if you have really old pipes, right? And you have a boulevard tree that's digging into those pipes, if that you're changing that connection, and I've already been told that I clear it out every year because I have issues, is that construction there gonna force me to change that? And if it is, can I do it at the same time? Do I have to do it at a different time? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so it wouldn't force you to change it, but it would be an opportunity that you could work with a contractor that we have to finish the replacement.
At the same time?
Yeah.
That's all far enough.
Yeah.
Okay, second question, and then I'll let you all move on. The amount of traffic, I live on Grand right behind the ICE building. The amount of traffic that goes back and forth on that road since that construction has begun is constant. It doesn't stop. And it's huge, heavy trucks. That has to have an impact. Do they have to help fund a part of this as a result of that? Or how does, what is their impact and what is their input to take care of some of the damage that's being done by that?
Yeah, so.
Carl, hang on before you answer. I think there's people trying to, in the waiting room on.
Oh, is that what that thing is? Thank you. There we go.
Good catch.
Sorry, it looks like I had a few folks waiting to get in here. Is there another one?
It's a question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think a few of you have just joined us. I went through the presentation. We are recording this meeting, and I'll make sure to post it on our website. And maybe all the people who are on Teams, I'll have you respond with your name and your address and your email, and I can make sure that you get a link to the recording of this. I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again?
Just regarding the amount of traffic that's
Right.
a result of the construction that's going on now versus the actual local traffic.
Yeah. So anyone who has frontage on Grand will pay their respective portion. So I think the Ives is not one of the ones on Grand, but I know they're all associated.
But they have a big impact on the road.
Totally understand. So they won't have a direct payment in this program. I do believe that they pay fees associated with the planning applications that account for their generation.
Yeah. We also got the 60% city share too, that's chipping into the project.
Right. Yeah.
But there's no way that we can recoup costs from trucks on Grand that I know of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I respond to your question about the sewer line and such? My recommendation would not be to go ahead and take that out, but to take the opportunity to get it lined. We did it on our house on South Third, and it's incredible. And we had a problem similar with lots of tree roots getting in. It's an incredible process, but one of the bigger costs of doing it is they have to access your pipes through the excavation to get the lining equipment set up.
Right.
So if you did it at the same time that this was opened, you're cutting out a big expense of the work that you would have to be getting done. And it's a much cheaper way to do it and much less intrusive on doing any damage to existing trees and such by just simply lining your pipe. You'd have to have an inspection to make sure that it's viable, but it's a great way to go.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we saw on some of these projects, we've seen that where they'll go in beforehand and line to end up with a new pipe at the end of it.
You gotta be careful about adding a contractor to an existing project too. Sometimes there'll be conflicts if they're trying to work when we already have someone.
Yes, I mean, all they need to do is just, if the hole was already there, all they need to do is just access the pipe and then just line it, and it's done within 2 hours. So I don't see that there's much of a problem there.
Yeah. I think I heard, looks like I see Mike with your hand up. Do you have a question? We're not hearing you if you're trying to talk, Mike. You
Anyone that couldn't hear before.
okay, you could throw, oh, sorry, I'm hearing something now.
Carl, this is Mike Miller. I'm about to jump on the plane. I have just one question, I think, to group would be interested in hearing.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
If the project goes ahead and homes get assessed, does that assessment stay with that property even if the ownership changes? Or does the current owner have to pay it off at closing should they sell the house?
No, it's on the property, so it would continue with the property.
For how many years?
Okay. And did you say it was being amortized over 20 years? I couldn't quite hear the reference to 20 years earlier.
Yep, you heard that right. Yep, 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, I should just go ahead this way.
Yeah, I don't quite get what, doesn't, like some of the streets that people said, no, doesn't it get to a point where the sewage or the drainage or whatever is simply untenable and has to be done regardless of the vote? How does it vote? I mean, when do you have an override? When do you compel it?
Yeah, so for example, if you guys vote this down, our next step's gonna be to go to the commission and say, hey, this isn't working, give us some direction on this. We're working off of current commission policy, and if that doesn't work, then you know, we just have to work with what we're given.
Sorry, just one quick second. The utility reconstruction is funded out of the general utility funds. So it's not, so this SID cost doesn't pay for the underground utility infrastructure. That's out of a different fund. And we do, so like you know, that the sewer main in Grand was rehabilitated, you know, some years ago through that bucket of money. So there are opportunities to replace utilities, but like you said, the very nice thing about the streets is it's a lot cheaper to do underground utilities when your streets being redone than to try and you know, kind of shoehorn a sewer project into an existing street.
So is Beale a completed street in good shape? So
It's not on our list. I'm not sure familiar with the condition of it, but it's not on our list.
constructing 111 there for a long time, pounding that street, and you know, I'm just wondering what kind of condition it's in.
Yeah,
Because I never deal in Grant. Across the
It's not on our 15-year list at the moment.
Yeah, Beale's in much better shape. It has curves.
Yeah, it does have.
It has stormwater, you know, its surfaces in much better shape.
I was just curious on the traffic count, if there's consideration for possible increase of traffic over the last few years on Grand because of the condition that seems to be unaddressed on North Wilson, where it's no longer wide enough for two cars and there's still parking allowed on both sides. It's a one-way to where you cannot see from an entire long block. So I know people avoid Wilson now. And so I'm just curious whether your count this time was dramatically higher than the count when you did it before. And I think we can only anticipate that that's going to go up once these very, very large buildings are inhabited. I just know the amount of traffic that's going up and down North Wilson, or the parking, I should say, from those construction projects is just unbelievable. And so people are avoiding that. And then, you know, obviously there has to be an impact on the north-south direction of North Grand.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the other point that also relates to Wilson is that I've emailed and called the city on a number of occasions to discuss the North Wilson situation. Because for me, that's kind of my traffic flow to go into town. And, you know, the car park right up to the corners, and because it's now a one-way and you can't see till the entire length of the block, I make my turn and then lo and behold, there's a car coming toward me. You know, it's just, it impacts safety of pedestrians crossing. So I've emailed and called, and then also specifically about the fact that the curbs are not painted yellow anymore at the corner of Villard and Wilson. And my husband almost got hit. Because as a pedestrian, you can't see because the cars are parked. So it's just interesting to see the priority of having beautiful curbs all painted yellow. And that is the one thing that I've asked for on Wilson. Like, it's a low hanging fruit, low budget item. Can we please just get yellow paint on these curbs so that people don't park right up next to the corner? And I don't even get an email back anymore.
Okay.
So I feel like I haven't been listened to in one hand, but now, I'm on Grand. We want to make it, and I'm all for ADA compliance, absolutely, and curb painting, because again, we've experienced the lack of safety on Wilson in that regard. And I was just told, at least just an aside, they said that painting doesn't occur until the construction projects are over, which that's a multi-year project that's going on. So I said I'd take my own yellow paint down there, and he said, no, don't do that. Mike in economic development parking said, no, don't do that, but it still hasn't been done. So it seems a mismatch to hear that this is a priority when I, as a concerned citizen, in another aspect, have pointed out a huge safety concern. I'm probably the most congested corner in Bozeman right now at Villard and Wilson. And it's been ignored.
Okay.
So anyway, just curious the impact, I guess, of one and the other. So
Yeah, you want to take the curb paint first?
Yeah, we can help you with the curb paint. I can get that on the street skies list.
there's also not a no parking here to corner sign right there. And I mean, every single day someone parks right at that corner and you cannot see.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
It probably won't happen until spring because of the weather, but we'll get it done for you.
And then as far as the traffic, so the traffic counts were taken this fall, or actually the part of it was just done last week. So they'd be representative of what you're talking about to cut through. And yeah, I do know the situation that you're talking about. I know it's been on our folks' radar to do something.
Yeah, it would just be nice to get I brought my email that I sent in October and I never got a response from that. And then I made a follow-up phone call and I never got an answer back. So,
Sure.
It's a safety, it's mostly about safety.
Yeah, totally understand.
Is the plan for making it wider, and with that, is there gonna be parking on both sides, or is it gonna stay as is, which is, in my opinion, safer?
So I think there's.
Yeah, North Grand.
Yeah. So the curve is kind of indiscriminate on North Grand right now. So we would make it as a standard section, and I believe we would maintain no parking on the one side, and I think that's largely due to that being a bike route as well. But it would.
It's about 35 feet.
Yeah. So that. I don't know if that, because that has no parking on one side, right? Or is that?
Which street?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no parking on there.
On Story Street. Yeah. That one's a little narrower though.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so it's a little, like I said, I know I kind of went through it pretty quickly, but so we haven't done a detailed survey of the street yet to know exactly what we have space for. But that's, I think additional parking would be unlikely.
But the nominal plan is to keep it city street.
Yep.
Hey, Carl, question or follow up on the question about the traffic count and some context too. My understanding is North Tracy was done and it had enough traffic to trigger the better split. But even with that higher traffic, the split was still only 50-50. So the people on North Tracy had to pay 50%, but with this cap, the linear foot cap, it's a roughly 40%.
Right.
So even if the traffic kicked it to the next level, the cap was still going to be the operative factor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so the traffic counts would have to get all the way up to 1,500 to where the cap wouldn't be the less cost in you, which 1,500 trips is pretty substantial.
Okay.
Yeah, we got
don't want it to go to 1,500 trips.
What was it at? 834 something, did you say?
483.
40.
Yeah.
Oh, it's under.
Yeah, so it's getting small.
I have one more question just about potential widening. Would there be any guarantee or forethought to not removing any boulevard trees in that situation? Or
We'd do our best to preserve trees for sure. No, our forestry folks would really yell at me if I started taking out all their trees.
they took them out on Wilson. That's why.
And they all of them.
I see a question from Suzanne.
Wilson is a different caliber street. I mean, it's a collector, a major collector, isn't it? Yeah, it's just a collector.
Not one
Just
way.
a collector.
One way.
What?
I mean, it's not called a one way.
Yeah.
It just
It's more like one at a
you
time.
can't get through. It's for horse and carriage.
It's like a one-lane bridge.
Yeah.
Suzanne, you have a question online?
I did, thank you. This kind of relates to the boulevard. So we have spent a lot of love and time and money on our boulevard, and we have like sagebrush and lots of flowers and plants. And would we get to keep that necessarily, or what would happen there?
Yeah, we would do our best during construction to conserve what's there. As as far as the what would be required of the grading of the street would impact where your boulevard is today. Likely that won't change significantly. But yeah, go ahead.
So we usually need about 1 foot past the curb to work. So if you look where the curb would be, if you extend that out about 1 foot, that's the limits of where we would be working.
Okay, thank you. And then just a comment on the postcard that you send out. I saw that it says, if you say no, are there any comments? And I just wonder, like, maybe just leaving it open for anyone, like if anyone wants to add comments or thoughts during this process, it would be nice to have that open space for anything people wanted to share.
Yeah, please do. And I think I've got my email in a few different places and things I've given you guys, so you can share that with me directly as well.
Oh, is the postcard already done?
No, it's not yet. No.
Oh, okay. So
But I
maybe,
think the letter I sent you guys, I think I gave you my email address, and I'll have it. I'll accompany this with a letter as well that I'll have my email address on.
and I was trying to, I don't know if we knew the last time that the vote was done. Do we know what people voted, like what the ratio was, or the yes, no percent?
I don't.
The last time we voted on this,
Yeah.
it was about 90% no, but the cost split was way worse that time.
Yeah, that's an important point. I think the last time we tried it, the cost was more like $30,000, $20,000, $30,000 a typical lot, something like that.
When was that vote?
It was eight years ago.
It was a significantly more.
For North Grant?
Yeah, it was a 75% local funding.
It wasn't for the existing all the way from
I think
West Mendenhall all the way to Peach.
yeah, we didn't include Mendenhall on that one.
Okay, it must have been from like Beale, the north, because I was never notified, and we're on the corner of Beale and
Okay.
Grant.
Yeah, I don't know the exact limits, but
Okay,
it's shorter.
But the resolution 5174 makes it a much better deal, if you will, for the homeowner. Yeah, and capping the cost, especially in this construction environment.
Can I follow up on the question that if we were to vote no and then you go to the commission, what does that mean? Like, where does it go from there?
Normally what we would do is go to the next street on our list, but because we've been getting so many no votes, we would probably ask them to revise the policy. It would be their decision on what the new policy would be.
Have any other questions?
When would the first assessment, if we voted yes and it went through, when is the first assessment actually applied to us as a tax?
It would be at the completion of construction, right?
Completion of construction?
Yep.
So we're talking somewhere 2025 at the earliest?
Yeah,
End of 25.
yeah, like the fall of 2025.
Okay.
I just add, if anyone's not already familiar with how awesome North Tracy turned out, to check it out. Walk it, check out the curb cuts and the little bumpy platforms and the nice curves, and even just the street in the summer looks, it's awesome. It's great for biking here, whatever.
What are you thinking for traffic calming?
We haven't put a whole lot of study to anything in particular. I'm sure you guys have all noticed that there was a mini roundabout put in relatively recently. So it'd be things along those lines. I think there's a bicycle corridor study, something or another, that's going to get underway that we would probably take some pointers from that. But we haven't talked anything specifically.
I would like public comment too on what you guys would like to see on the street if you approve it.
So there was a roundabout put on North Grand and Lammy. Was there a thought that you maybe do this roundabout on North Grand and Beale? Beale is the amount of traffic that has increased on Beale over the last 20 years is unbelievable. And the speeds with which people drive. And unfortunately, Bozeman drivers now think stop signs are optional.
Yeah, we've had good success with those. You drive down South 6, we put 3 traffic circles on that previous truck. Pretty good.
Yeah, and so likely if we got positive feedback, right, we'd start getting our survey lined up, and then probably when we start kind of through that process, we'd probably re-engage with you folks on the kinds of things that you're really looking for in the design. Oh, thank you. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. There's been flooding on the street, like at Beale and Grand.
Yeah.
I assume that this engineering work that you're doing will make sure that doesn't continue to happen.
Yeah, there's the existing stormwater infrastructure is outdated, and I think I've got one picture of where there's a catch basin not really doing its job, not being within the asphalt. So yeah, there is certainly inadequate infrastructure, and that's something that in all likelihood we would replace the infrastructure that's there, as well as add additional infrastructure to take care of that.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
Yep. Okay, well,
So I got one more. I think there's one more question that's probably important. So we voted down. But we had this question that goes back to the commission. Let's walk through the timeline of that. It gets voted down. You take it back to the commission. No guarantee the policy's changed. Right? Absolutely. If the policy does change, we're talking about, in your best estimate, if we were to vote it down, when would we be back up on the list in hopes of a better deal?
got any crystal balls?
It's a decade.
Yeah, could be.
It could easily be a decade.
You guys voted it down twice. It'd be unlikely we put you at the top of the list again.
I think that's important. If we don't do it now, it's likely a decade with the way the process works and the other things in the system before we have a chance again. And it won't get any cheaper.
Can you go back to that slide where you had the yeses and nos?
Yeah,
You got yes and that.
Yeah.
So the no's there are referring to where this was previously taken to the homeowners along. So that's why there's a no at the North Grand Avenue. And that's referring to what you said was voted 8 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the slide isn't very descriptive as to what that means, because I looked at that and went, I don't understand this at all. I just thought the no meant the project hasn't been completed and it's, under consideration. So if you're sending this information out to the rest of the people who aren't here to ask these questions, I would suggest explaining what that no means, because it's totally confusing.
All right. Yeah. I'll add some more context when I post those things.
That's good. I mean, we voted it down 8 years ago, so it's taken us 8 years to get back in the queue. It's a much better deal now than it was 8 years from now. If we turn this down, we're a decade away. We're a decade.
And you may indicate what the price was 8 years ago to people, and then what the price comparison is. It's like, this was voted down for this price, but hey, we've reassessed this and come up with a much better way to go ahead and finance this at a much lesser burden to the homeowner. If you don't do it now, there's no telling what it's going to be later. I mean, I would suggest that so that you can sell this with enough information so people really grasp.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, why am I going to do this? And it's like, if you show that 30,000 to 8,000, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah, we did try to find that number and we couldn't find it.
Well, at least give you some.
So it would have been 75% of the cost.
Okay.
So it previously 75%, now 40%.
Yeah.
So
still numbers are going to sell people in a way with that. I just that that's your desire, is to try and give enough information to people to coerce yeses.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, we did try and find that. You think a little deeper.
Wonderful question. Is traffic calming always a part of these projects? Because is it such that when you improve the street with the curves and it's just more appealing for people to take that street? So is it that the traffic flows pretty much always go up? Like, for example, in North Tracy, is so that then you do want to kind of always be looking at traffic calming because you're going to see a higher amount of traffic on an improved street?
I don't think it's always been a part of the reconstruction projects. I think the last few have had them.
Because you're anticipating more traffic, or just it's a good time to do it in general?
We mostly do it to slow traffic down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more speed versus, I see what's going.
Or, yeah, I mean, like, North Tracy had high traffic pre,
right.
So was like for the split, but
Sure.
and then streets like Wallace and whatnot, I mean, I think it's because they're like thinking along what makes a good local neighborhood street has evolved.
Right.
So it's more of like
right.
an amenity or a protection.
Right.
Can you give us some estimate of what the time length is that each block would be torn up? Like, how long can you not get into your front yard? I can't get into my backyard for a year now. Just saying.
Yeah, I think that'd be hard to tell at this point. I think that was
In past experience, a month per block is about when our contractor's working well. We can write conditions on how many blocks they can tear up at a time. The more conditions you put on, the more expensive the project gets for us.
Yeah.
How much were the South Sixth people paying? Just as a comparison.
38% of the total cost, which, linear foot cost is probably like 6-7% less than you guys would be paying.
It's another good one to lock. Who knows?
What's the SOP you guys have for bidding the job? How many contractors or vendors do you bid out to?
We use an online bidding that I think it sends out to anyone. Puts a little flag that says I do construction, so conceivably hundreds, but
We don't get use 3 or 4 generally, so on our projects.
Not to beat the Wilson agreement to death, but would there be thought to addressing the Wilson situation before Grand becomes impassable? Or sounds like months? Because then obviously everyone is going to be shipping back over to Wilson, which is again the one way right now.
Yeah, painting the signs are easy. Do that.
Right.
The widening, we'd have to talk with our managers about that.
It's more, I think, just, yeah, but I don't know whether it's the width wise, if it qualifies for removing parking on one side of the street. I know everyone would be upset about not having that parking, but I mean, that, I don't, maybe that would be a simple fix, at least during the Grand project to get the traffic flowing on Wilson again. But,
Well, I guess, I mean, I would just throw this sort of somewhat indirect thinking, but I mean, like on Wilson, for example, Wallace by like Wild Crumb, for one example. I mean, I know that the people who live there use it a lot, but it's also nice when your street isn't the most convenient way through.
right.
So, I mean, I don't know. People have to kind of wait.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
at least from a safety standpoint, that's mostly that I is my concern.
Welcome.
Hi, sorry, I don't get off work till 6.
Yeah, we have got through the presentation. I think there are quite a few questions. I could let most of the folks here go, and
Oh, okay. Well, if it's recorded, I know,
it is recorded.
I
yeah.
know a couple people here.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If I got your contact information, then I'll make sure that you get a link to the video. I suppose I can probably stop that at this point.
So Carl, I am gonna just, I talked to you earlier about, between Lammy and Beal. And because of the other block that is going to be developed at some point in the future. I mean, I don't see the reason to go ahead and do all the work there when the fact that during the construction of whatever's going to happen on that block runs the risk of destroying all the work that you're putting into North Grand along that stretch. I think that needs to be seriously looked at and decide whether or not you wanted to simply go from Beal to Peach, and then address Mendenhall to Beal at some later time, simply because of the cost effectiveness of not having to redo that stretch because of the damage of another construction project. So,
Yeah, we'll definitely keep our sights on that.
But it's also possible that the owners of that block would sort of know the street work's gonna happen. And is it possible they could just stub out what they need in advance or at the time?
They wouldn't know the detail.
yeah, not even any line, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
concept even for that block yet. So I don't think it would be within your work.
Yeah, likely not. But you know, if they do escalate their something, coordinate with them where we could.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for your time, and we'll be getting a letter soon. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.